Hello, yay! Welcome to Coding Together, episode 3. So I am Angie again, and I'm excited that we'll get to do some more coding together. Today I actually am not going to kick off a project because some of you have actually shared your projects, one of the last 2 projects with me. So I want to show off some of your work. And I also, I had heard that there was a question about the coordinate system. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. So I hope you'll still engage in more projects, or like in one of the projects that you haven't done yet. And I'll be thinking of a 3rd project soon and hope to share that with you later this week or early next week. So again, if you have anything to share with me, to ask me questions, something you're wondering about, feel free to leave a comment on YouTube or to send me an email at codingtogetheryay@gmail.com. Sorry, I don't have any fancy frames today. Oh, wait. Oh, no, there's still just the fall leaves. Maybe we'll do this other fall festivity. That's pretty good, right? Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so let's dive right into some of the things you've shared with me. Again, make my bubble smaller. Okay, so the first project that we did together was coding charades. And I think 3 of you sent me your project. So Jen sent me a screenshot of, I think this is a coding charade project. Don't know what the prompt is, so mysterious, but I love how we're seeing kind of using f-stroke weight and playing around with the rectangle function. Chiao sent the following. So let's take a look at the code before I press play. I believe the prompt starts with J, so you could try to see if you could guess it. I'll give you a moment. So I love how there's kind of the setup function. You don't really need 2 setup functions, but in this case, it's not really messing up the code, so it's okay. In the draw function, which again, the draw function goes over and over again, but because nothing is changing in the code, in the instructions that are inside of the draw function, it just looks to be an image. So we say we are setting up the background, and then we're setting up the fill to be some color, probably more reddish bluish, maybe purple, because I can see that the red and the blue numbers are a little bit higher. There's a stroke color, so the outline color is a little different, but also kind of purplish, but maybe darker purple, because it's like 130 on red, 130 on blue, and nothing on green. The stroke weight is 10, so it's kind of a thickish line. And then I see that we're doing an ellipse, so some sort of circle, but because I can see it's a circle because the width and the height, which is the last 2 numbers that you input into the instruction ellipse, are the same. And then some curve. So Xiao is combining a function we talked about in the 2nd project, which is the finger painting project. So let's see what happens. Woohoo! Do you have a guess on what the Pictionary word is, or the charade word is? I think she actually verifies it in the comments, but it's jog. So that's awesome. I really love how the color scheme. I also love how she used the fill command with the curve, which has some interesting kind of unexpected action, like it fills in different parts of the curve. So that's pretty cool. Brian, also known as TinkerWise, also shares this project. Brian's a little bit more of a experienced coder, as we will see in a bit, that he's able to use some functions, which we haven't really talked about yet. We will probably talk about it in a future video. So there's some tree branches. I love how Brian also like comments things out, which, you know, kind of like ruins the guessing game a little bit, but good coding practice. So there's using triangles and some fill, right? Like, so this fill is different from Chiao's, which is like high on the green and nothing on red and blue. So it's going to be a green color. There's a function hook, but really for the purpose of what we're looking at, we can just see what the instructions are for hook. So it's making a line. Then later on, when you see hook again, it's just essentially as if you had just copied these 2 lines of code into here, right? So let me see if I can draw. So like basically whenever you do this hook thing, you're just going to look around and look for something called hook, and then it's just going to take these 2 lines and do the 2 lines that you have made the shortcut name called hook for, and just insert them here. So what Brian has done is set the fill to be really reddish. There's a stroke weight, and then draw says, oh, I'm going to call this function hook. So it's a shortcut for these 2 commands, which is draw a line, draw a circle, draw some other line. I wonder what it is. I believe he had said that the word starts with O. Do you know what it is? Do you have a guess? It's very festive, very appropriate for this time. Yeah, it's ornament. It's right here too, in case you weren't reading the comments. Okay, so those are awesome charade projects. Thank you for those of you who shared. And if you are working on the charades project, please share with me. Now let's take a look at some finger painting project. This is from Chiao again, who, again, remember the finger painting project? We were playing around with the Bezier and the curve function and just using our fingers to kind of mash the keyboard to see what happens, sort of like how kids do finger painting. So here's a really cool one. I like the color scheme a lot. I like the use of transparency, which we talked about in the second episode. So that's really cool. It almost looks like a vase. Yeah, what do you see? This is like one of those like psychological tests. What do you see? This is really fun. Thank you, Chiao, for sharing. And then here's Tinkerwise, aka Brian. Again, so Brian did a little bit different strategy, right? You can see that Brian has some experience programming. So instead of doing the finger painting, he's using an instruction called random to do the finger painting for him. So, which actually gets to a big point of computer science and coding. Right? As I said, computer science is an entire discipline built around the idea of giving instructions to computer in more and more complex ways. And a lot of times when I teach my students computer science, I say because ultimately people who study computer science and people who code are really, really lazy people. Like we just want to avoid doing kind of the same thing over and over again. If there's a way we can make the computer do a thing for us, we will likely think of a way to make the computer do the thing for us. And in this case, Brian has absolutely done that, where instead of doing the finger mashing, like the typing, and to choose a random number, he just says, I'm going to get the computer to give me a random number, which is actually kind of interesting, right? Because then it allows you to, every time I hit this play button, something different might happen. Slightly different. This actually starts getting into the realm called generative art, which is sort of like one of my favorite things ever. And maybe in a future video, we'll actually get to do more of this kind of stuff, like using random, where when you use random in a project, it becomes kind of like the piece of art you generate can be a collaboration between the person, the coder, and the computer. So this is kind of interesting, right? So what Brian has done is like basically written an extra function called fingers, which is pretending to be kind of the finger mashing thing, and using a bunch of the Bezier functions, same thing, but instead of randomly giving it 8 numbers, he's using this random function that somebody else wrote, someone at P5, actually someone in JavaScript land wrote, to have it select a random number. So in this case, like what I'm highlighting is select a random number between 100 and 200. So now, when I play it again, the colors are the same because you can see the stroke color here is always the same, and then the fill color, it's only one channel that has some randomness, right? So this is really cool. Thanks for sharing, Brian. So the last thing I'll leave you with today is talking a little bit about what do all these numbers mean? And I'll give you kind of an extension to the two projects that we have done, inspired by what Brian did. Okay, so the first thing is like I had in the first video and the second video, I had said like, oh, when you need to use, for example, a ellipse function. Let me start up a new window. Right. We had said like maybe when you do like an ellipse function, you give it an X and a Y. Right. And I just sort of started typing numbers. And I said, okay, well, let's just start typing some numbers. And then you see where it draws a circle. And if you don't like it, you start playing with the number. Maybe you add something to the X, and then it moves over there. Right? That's an okay way to start. But now you might be wondering, okay, but like, what if I really want it to in the middle, right? So let's talk about what's actually happening. So this square is kind of pretending to be this gray area, what we call the canvas. Okay, so what is happening is that up here, ooh, that's a crazy font. Can I change this font? I hope so. Not chewy. Let's just do a more easy to use font. There we go. Okay, there we go. So when you see this canvas area, X equals 0. Wow, this is huge. Let's see how we make it smaller. You're just watching this, like, obviously I did not plan this very well. How do I make it smaller? I'm not sure. Oh well. Let's then do something else then. Let's just draw. Oops. Wow. This is not working out super well. There we go. All right, let's try that again. Escape. Delete this. Delete that. Yes. Okay, now let's just draw with a pen. Good old pen. Okay, so up here, like X, what I mean when I say X is like things going in this direction, right? This is our X. And then this is our Y. Oh, look at my nice brush painting. Check that out. So what it means is that when we're looking at something that's up in this corner, the X is going to be 0 and the Y is 0. So that's how we can refer to a location on the canvas. Ooh, look at that. Okay. And in this line of code, it says create canvas 400, 400, which means we've told the computer, given the computer an instruction that our canvas should be 400 wide. Right, so from here to here is 400 pixels wide. Pixel is a unit of measurement on computer screens. It means one of the tiny, tiny little squares that makes up your screen. Usually your screen have like thousands, like it's usually like a 1900 by like, 900 pixels, or like so many pixels that you can't see individual squares unless you zoom way in with a microscope. But in this case, the computer can refer to each of those little squares called pixels individually. So it can say, hey, I want a 400 pixel by 400 pixel wide canvas. So if I were trying to refer to a point down here, what do you think the X and Y value might be? Give it some thought. Yeah, it's going to be 400. X is 400 and Y is 400, right? So 400 and 400. This is the X. This is the Y. Now, question. What if I want to be in the exact middle? What do you think the X and Y will be? Yeah, it's going to be 200, right? X should be 200 because it's halfway between 0 and 200. If I can write the 2. Whoa, look at that. Same for the Y. So, for the X direction, the more to the left it is, the lower the number, the closer to 0. And the more to the right it is, the closer it is, the bigger the number, so the closer it is to how wide your canvas is. For Y, the more closer to the top, the smaller your number. And the closer to the bottom of your canvas, the bigger the number. Okay? So now, when we're actually trying to place an ellipse, like a circle, if I want it to be exactly in the middle, I can say 200, 200. Right? So, here's my challenge to you to kind of make use of that, is to take one of your older projects, like if you've worked on the coding charades or the finger painting, you can grab one of those projects and add on to it if you want. Or you can make a whole new project to practice the coordinate system. For example, let's say I picked the Pictionary project, which I have this. Try to see if you can make it shift to different places. That would be kind of cool, right? In fact, what if you try to, so for example, pick a direction and see if you can go that way. Let's say I want to move my little guy to the left. Then you have to look at your code and say, what do I have to shift to the left? I have to shift the X, right? I have to make the X smaller, closer to 0, and then test it out. So maybe it's 100 here, 150 here, or maybe 100 here. See what happens. Oh, now my little guy the head is a little bit like, I need to do some stretches, right? So you have to figure out, like you can play around. Okay, so maybe I need to move it back a little bit this way. There we go. What if I want to make it go up? You know how to make it go up, right? Maybe you play around with the Y. And then you can also play around with the idea of what if I want to do something random? Like, what would that mean, right? Like, if you feel inspired or motivated to play around the random function, see what you can make random and still have it do something. You can play with color. For example, what if my Little guy has different color blue, like this is the, I think the head. Oh, you can sort of see when I make the blue channel random, it starts like flickering. What else can I make random? There will be some things that you make random that becomes kind of silly. Ooh, look at that. I can make it do some flashy party flashing lights. Can you make the background be kind of random? Interesting. So random, when you use random, you give it 2 numbers as input. So number, comma, number. The 2 numbers is what do you want the minimum number, like the lower end range of your random number, and then the second number is the upper end range of your random number. So what if I want it to be 0 to 55? Woo! Oh, I don't like that. Too flashy. So maybe I want to make it a little bit smaller. Still kind of flashy. I don't like the background with random. So now this is where the artistic part comes in. You figure out what you like. Okay? And then again, leave me a comment and share me your sketch. If you're watching this on Instagram, you can leave a comment on Instagram. If you're watching this YouTube, you can leave a comment on YouTube. Or if you don't like leaving comments because you like to leave no trace on the internet, you can email me, codingtogetheryay@gmail.com. Thank you for watching. I'm excited to come back with another project idea next time, but it's been fun coding together with you. Until next time, bye-bye.